Hello everyone, I'm George Taylor from ImagiNERDing, and on this episode we're going to take a look at the Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters Company. Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters is one of the world's best-known roller coaster manufacturers. Currently, they're known more for the development of coaster cars. When the company began, PTC, as it's known, was an offshoot of several amusement companies that were part of the carousel boom and early coaster craze. Throughout the years, PTC would create some of the most well-loved carousels outside of the Denzel carousel, and PTC would be responsible for the coaster rebirth of the early 1970s. According to official records, Philadelphia Toboggan Company was incorporated on January 20th, 1904 by Henry Auchy and Chester Albright. But there was still a lot that happened before 1904. Chester Albright was born in 1859, just a few years before Auchy. Albright earned a degree in civil engineering and worked for a coal company. He started his own business in 1890. In 1896, he helped to lay out the Willow Grove Park near Philadelphia. And like most parks of the day, it was an extension of the trolley line. The Willow Grove amusement park lasted until 1976. Albright joined Auchy in 1904 to create Philadelphia Toboggan Company. The headquarters for PTC was bought by Albright in 1905, and then Albright transferred the property to PTC. After that, Albright left to form his own business that dealt more with engineering and not amusement parks. Auchy has a much longer and storied relationship with amusement parks. Henry Auchy was born in 1861. His earliest career was in the produce business, but in 1898 he formed the Chestnut Hill Casino Company with a few other investors. They bought 25 acres with the intent of creating a park that would attract the middle and working class of Philadelphia and Norristown. Chestnut Hill Park reopened in June of 1898. Reports noted a toboggan, carousel, a lake with rowboats, electric launches, and a brass band that regularly played. In 1906, the park became a White City Park, which was a common name and referred to the whitewashing of the buildings, similar to the World's Columbia Exposition of 1893 in Chicago. And from what I've read and surmised, the park might have come under different ownership at that time. The following year, in 1899, Auchy formed Gray's Amusement Company based out of his liquor establishment. There's not much information about either. He also formed the Philadelphia Carousel Company with Lous Berni, and Berni was an importer of carousel organs. I've seen conflicting references, but the first carousels made by Auchy and Berni were under contract by E. Joy Morris. In 1903, Philadelphia Carousel bought E.J. Morris's company for a reported $30,000, which would be roughly more than $750,000 in today's dollars. This included 200 completed carousel figures, which allowed the newly formed Philadelphia Toboggan Company to sell 4 complete carousel and recoup their costs. Ultimately, they were going to focus on the much more lucrative roller coaster market. But the addition of the extra carousel figures made them decide to continue making carousels. As a side note, E.J. Morris found building and operating coasters more to his liking. He designed the Leap the Dips side friction coaster in Lakemont Park in Altoona, Pennsylvania, which is the oldest operating coaster in the world. Auchy patented the friction drive for carousels in 1909. This revolutionary addition was promised to last at least 25 years without needing replacement or repair. And there are actually a number of PTC carousels still sporting their original Auchy friction drive. During the next 30 years, PTC sold and leased carousels, and in some cases, they rebuilt carousels from other manufacturers and then sold them. During the lean World War years, many carousel makers, including PTC, halted production and carved wooden propellers for the military. Historically, during this time, there weren't many amusement parks as we know them today. In most cases, outside people and companies would lease land from the park and build and operate their own ride. PTC built many coasters that they owned and ran in different parks. Auchy passed away in September of 1922. So now the next part of the history gets a little confusing. Herbert Schmeck is listed as the president from 1922 to 1954 on the official PTC website. John Davies is mentioned as being vice president, and Schmeck was chief engineer until he became president in 1946. But a 1946 obituary for John Davies in Billboard listed him as president of PTC, so we'll go with that for now. John R. Davies was the next president of PTC. He was born in 1872 in New York, and according to the 1910 census, he lived in Chicago and worked as a purchasing agent for street railways. By 1920, he was living in Philadelphia and was listed as the president of Wallen Good Company. I'm not sure what that is. In 1922, he was made president of the Philadelphia Toboggan Company after Auchy's passing. During the 1920s, PTC focused on building roller coasters, carousels, and other amusement park rides, like Old Mills, Chutes, and Funhouses. Yes, PTC built amusements besides coasters and carousels. During this time period, there was also the development of the Laughing Sal figures, which were used as ballyhoos or barkers for dark rides. You might remember them. They were very large figures with most often a papier-mâché head. They were very crude animatronics that came with LP records of the laugh track, and there's still one at Kennywood. By 1930, PTC had stopped making carousels altogether. So Herbert P. Schmeck was set to join PTC in 1917, but was called away to the war. His history with the company, though, begins a few years before that. Schmeck was born in 1890 in Pennsylvania. He started working in a cabinet company, but found himself working in the amusement industry. In 1914, he managed and operated the Green Streak Coaster at Paragon Park in Massachusetts. The Green Streak was destroyed by fire in 1916, and PTC was hired to build a new coaster. In 1917, the Great Coaster opened, and Schmeck was the liaison between Paragon Park and PTC. At the time, Auchy was impressed with him and offered him a job, but the job would have to wait until after the Great War. After the war, Schmeck was able to join PTC, and Auchy made him chief engineer overseeing new amusement devices. And after Auchy had passed away, the PTC board allowed Schmeck to start designing new roller coasters. His first coaster was called the Joyride at Hershey Park. It was renamed Wildcat and operated from 1923 to 1946. The cost was $50,000 in 1923, which is over $750,000 today. PTC continued to design and construct roller coasters and different amusement rides before Davies passed away in 1946. Schmeck was then named president. During Davis's presidency, PTC built more than 50 coasters. It would be the busiest period of coaster building in PTC's history. Did you know that PTC also held the patents and manufactured Skee-Ball? Yes, they did. Schmeck ultimately would design 80 coasters for PTC. He never had a formal education in design, but learned based on studying blueprints of coasters and from his own knowledge of construction. Coaster legend John C. Allen, born in Philadelphia in 1907, joined PTC in 1927. He graduated from Drexel University and had a background in audio engineering. In 1927, he had been contacted to install a sound system in a funhouse that PTC was building. By 1934, he moved from Philadelphia to Mountain Park in Holyoke, Massachusetts. There he operated the 5-year-old Schmeck-designed Mountain Flyer for PTC. Allen left PTC sometime in the early 1940s and returned later in the decade. I mentioned earlier that PTC also built a large number of funhouses. In the 1940s, PTC had such a huge demand for funhouses and dark ride stunts that they couldn't keep up with the demands for the gags. They turned over all the molds and designs to a company that would eventually be Funny Fright, who would go on to produce more than 500 funhouses and dark rides. A Laugh in the Dark article describes a funhouse at Kenobi Lake Park, and I quote, "The funhouse was built by Philadelphia Toboggan Company around 1938. It was originally proposed with the name Death Valley, however the park owners changed this to Laugh Valley when construction began. The attraction was a mid-sized typical walkthrough similar to many other PTC that had been building around the country at the time, with a dark twisting maze, shifting floorboards, lily pads, and the like. It featured as its central attraction PTC's popular magic carpet, consisting of an upholstered bench sat upon by pairs of patrons and which collapsed at the control of an operator, spilling the patrons onto a wide canvas conveyor belt, followed by a second belt which brought the laughing patrons to the exit." End quote. A 1945 advertisement for PTC lists the following in their catalog: Mill Chutes, Cuddle Up, Funhouse and Stunts, The Magic Carpet, Dark Rides and Stunts, Animated Figures, Noah's Ark, Park Buildings and Playgrounds, and finally, Pool Equipment. They did build the Noah's Ark at Kennywood, which is the last operating Noah's Ark in the world. Also mentioned in the ad were the animatronics, which would have been the Laughing Sal, the Laughing Sam, and other Barker figures. Most of PTC's work in the 1950s and 1960s shifted to constructing kiddie rides and kiddie lands. The roller coaster industry was slowing down, but the baby boomers generation would foster hundreds of smaller parks geared towards young children. One of the larger projects was the Golden Nugget at Hunts Pier in Wildwood, New Jersey. Golden Nugget was a dark ride coaster combination that sounds similar to, Blazing Fury at Dollywood. It was a 3-story dark ride, and the top floor was designed like a runaway mine train in the desert. And here's an excerpt from an article at funchase.com. Designed by John Allen and constructed by Hunts Pier staff, the Golden Nugget was a custom-built enclosed coaster and Hunt's premier ride for the 1960 season. A runaway mine train car will whisk you through a western frontier, complete with cowboys and Indians. Once up the lift hill, you would be taken on a short jaunt atop the structure where you could view an old prospector panning for gold, a covered wagon in the Boot Hill graveyard just before being dropped down the bottomless shaft. Well, not really. As you fly through the interior, you would encounter many of Bill Tracy's creations, miners and skeletons, giant bats and buzzards, even the classic near head-on collision with another mine car. Additional visual effects by Tracy included toppling barrels, collapsing mine shafts, trick waterfalls, and a roll through a spinning barrel of golden nuggets. This classic dark ride will live on in the hearts and memories of all those who had pleasure to ride." End quote. Allen stepped down as president in 1971, but stayed as the head designer. Thank goodness for all of us. In 1972, Allen designed the Racer at Kings Island in Cincinnati. The Racer sparked the coaster revolution that began in the 1970s and is still going strong. He designed 5 other coasters before retiring: the Woodstock Express at Kings Island, Carowinds, and Kings Dominion, the Great American Scream Machine at Six Flags Over Georgia, Rebel Yell at Kings Dominion, thankfully it's being renamed Racer 75 for the 2018 season, and Screaming Eagle at Six Flags St. Louis. John Allen passed away on August 17, 1979. But this is not the end of the Philadelphia Toboggan Company story, but it's the end for right now. Keep an eye out for the second half, which will talk about the modern company and what they've been doing and what they're up to. Thank you so much for checking out this video all about the Philadelphia Toboggan Company, or Philadelphia Toboggan Coasters as it's known now. Leave me a message and let me know what is your favorite PTC coaster, carousel, or dark ride. Have you ever had the chance to experience a PTC dark ride? I would love to hear from you. Don't forget to head over to patreon.com and subscribe to become an official ImagiNerd to get special rewards and early access to videos and other items. I'm George Taylor from ImagiNERDing. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave me a comment because I would really love to hear from you. And I hope to see you in the park.